Welcome to This Commerce Life. We are an unscripted podcast dedicated to small businesses and entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space in Canada and the United States.
I'm Phil Chang, co-host and co-founder.
And I'm Kenny Benucci, co-host and co-founder of This Commerce Life.
Our love is the journey to retail, and our passion is sharing that with you every week.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man.
Hey, David, how are you?
Very, very good.
Yeah,
Awesome.
nice to meet you. Nice to
Great
meet
to
you.
Yeah, great to meet you.
I'm Phil, and that's Kenny. Yeah.
I'm liking Kenny's backdrop. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Green Goblin action there. That's good. Oh, very nice. Very nice.
And then you got the boys from Italy, except for the one Cuban and Scarface.
Yep. This
It's all good in the hood.
Yeah, this is what happened to me. I have a bit of a man cave thing going on, and every square inch has pictures. You start running out. Like, I want to buy this picture, but I got nowhere to put
There's
it.
no room, man. You got to take all the
Yeah.
shit down, right?
Run out of space.
Yeah, no.
You start thinking about hanging things in the middle of the room. Just-
Well, you start thinking, okay, how do I display this? Maybe I could do a walk around.
yeah.
Yes. See how much the wife likes that idea,
Yep, absolutely.
right? Yeah, not
Oh
gonna
my
work.
God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's fun
Oh
stuff.
man.
All
It
good,
is.
man. All
We're
good.
we're glad that you could join us. We're glad that you could join us, and I think you're slightly. We'll be up front. You're a slightly unusual guest for us. We normally have kind of retailers and brands on, and then we get a lot of, and then we do get like success stories or folks from the CPG industry. So you kind of being in the industry but adjacent in a service provider is a little bit unusual for us. But I think your kind of profile was so interesting to us that we really couldn't say no. So we're interested to kind of chat with you. We're just so you know, like we're an unscripted podcast. I think we kind of relayed some of that stuff, but we what we're really interested in is kind of where you've come from and the success that you've seen, and then we'll definitely get into Carro as well, because I think you're doing I saw your video and some of your brand partnership stuff, so I think there's some really cool stuff you're doing there that maybe some of the particularly the emerging brands that we're working with or that listen to us will be interested in. So that's probably okay. So for the listeners,
Yeah, we can just have fun with it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think
That's just
it's
it.
a fun conversation. We can
Yeah.
riff, and yeah, I come from the game industry, so I'm coming into e-commerce from a very bizarre vector, and I think we can have fun.
Yeah. No, I think that's what caught our eye in the first place, right? Was like we often get folks who kind of like come at this from different angles, and some of those are the most interesting stories, right? So with that, listeners, we've got David Perry, who's the CEO and co-founder of the e-commerce network Carro, on with us. You've now heard the preface that of what we were thinking. So David, we'll kind of turn it over to you. So if you want to tell us a little bit more about you, and then we'll go from there and see where this thing takes us.
Firstly, I'm probably the tallest guest that you've ever had. You just can't tell in Zoom, can
Okay.
you?
I'm trying. I can't see anything.
Yeah, no, I'm 6'8" inches
Oh,
tall,
Wow.
and
Okay.
and most kids think that I wasted my entire life because I didn't get into basketball.
I say basketball.
but I grew up in Northern Ireland, and basketball was actually a very violent sport because you played it with a whole team of rugby players.
Oh,
And
excellent.
honestly, they didn't even really understand the rules of basketball. It was sort of rugby with a basketball, and that was pretty tough. But it was I grew up in Northern Ireland, in Belfast. And it was freezing cold outside. The sort of running joke in Ireland is it only rained twice this week, once for 3 days and once for 4 days. And so that's why suddenly I got into video games, because that's something you can do indoors.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that you could actually get paid to make video games. Like, how insane is that? And so one day I got a check in the mail as a kid. I was probably about 15. And I just was like, wait, what? It was
I'm
about
getting paid. That
was
was fun to do.
Paid to
Now I'm
play.
getting paid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like $600, I think. And I was like,
Yeah.
do you know how much candy that's gonna buy? And so, you know, like,
Exactly, man. And what'd you do? You played.
I went and bought candy, and
Come on.
then I started typing all night long. So when I realized the potential, but it turns out that the video game industry in Northern Ireland wasn't really very big. It was close to non-existent. So I ended up moving to England because I thought that's where all the action was, and I started to work on games there. But what I realized, which thankfully happened really early, was I realized the power of brands. So if I make a video game and I call it Jumpy Boy, it's very hard to get the world to play Jumpy Boy. But one of the first games I got to make was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and
No
suddenly
way.
a
Seriously?
suddenly I have a number 1 hit, and when you have a hit game, then everyone wants to work with you. Like everything's on the table, and so every time I made a game for myself, it was kind of like really hard to get
Wait,
attention.
so sorry, because are you talking about the arcade version? So the one that you throw a quarter in? I play
Oh,
that game a lot. Like I love that game.
no, so in England,
Yeah.
it's kind of in England, the video game industry was different from America.
Okay.
In America, when I say different, it was, to be clear, every machine in England had a keyboard on it.
Yeah.
So it meant that a lot of people were becoming coders, because the way you would actually buy a video game is you would buy a magazine and type it in, which was
Yeah,
great.
I remember
for
that.
typing skills. We had the best typing
Yeah.
skills, kids, because you're
Yeah.
typing in all these games. You would save them to a cassette tape.
Yep.
And store
remember
that. And so that was the industry at the time. Whereas other people, in America, there was a lot of Ataris and things like that where you had joysticks.
Yeah,
And it meant that, yes, they were playing games, but they weren't getting the access. But it wasn't totally true, because you still had Commodore 64s and things like that in the US.
So I had a Commodore 64, and I
Yeah.
was a bad coder because I did the same thing and I followed the code, but I would always offset something. So if you played like a sniper game, my buildings would always be off by like 2 blocks. Do you know? Like it just you knew that I was never going to do this for a living because all of my buildings were staggered.
Well, I found out recently, I didn't actually know this, but Elon Musk started out. That was his very first thing he ever did, was make games. So I went and found the game online and played it. And so that's interesting to see, how basic things were back then, So honestly, a lot of games didn't work, even if you thought they were working. What I cared about was it would say lives equals 3, and I'm like, if I put lives equals 10, do I get 10 lives? And the answer is yes, you do. And so you start hacking games and learning how they work that way. So
that's awesome. So how long ago was this? Like how far back are we going?
This was back when I was in my I actually, well, just to sort of finish the thought, I ended up leaving high school. I was about 17 at the time.
Right.
Okay.
But you're in London at this point, or not yet?
I literally was in high school and just left and went to England, and my teachers were like, what are you going to do?
Wow.
What the hell?
Video games.
That's a terrible idea. Because at the time it felt like video games they weren't really a career, right? That wasn't, everywhere I went, when I said, I make video games, they're like, I've never met someone that makes video games. That was a new thing at the time.
Yeah.
So, but in England, it went well. I got to make some really cool games, but probably one of the most interesting was when the Sega Genesis came out. I got one, and they asked me to do the Terminator for James Cameron on it. And that was just such high pressure. And it showed how bad licensing was at that time. So, can you imagine how exciting that is? You're going to get to make the Terminator.
Terminator.
And then we're like, we're going to be the Terminator. Like every gamer wants to be the Terminator. And then they're like, well, you can't be the Terminator. We don't have the rights to do that. You have to be one of the other people from the movie. And so, because I guess they didn't have the rights with Arnold to be the Terminator. So we're like, it's okay. We'll be Sarah Connor, because at least she's still a hero. Yeah. And they're like, well, we don't have Linda Hamilton.
What can I be?
You're like dog. You're like the red jersey Star Trek guy, right? Like,
remember that at the beginning?
No, I don't want to be the red jersey guy. He always dies. Like,
so they said to us, you can be Kyle Reese, and we're like, but he dies in the movie.
Exactly. What the hell good is that?
Spoiler for your listeners.
Yeah.
For those that haven't seen Terminator yet. But anyway, that was It was a nightmare. And so what I love is how through my career, I used to go to Hollywood meetings, and you would be in the room with these executives who could care less about the game industry. And so the chances of you ever getting a good deal were really low, where they would actually care and do the right licensing.
Right.
But as time went on, that totally changed. So as those people all, expired, we got young people moving into management positions. Every single sports person these days grew up with video games.
Yes.
Every single like just so many decision makers in the world, are all grew up with games, and we're so welcome everywhere now compared to those days. But I thought that was a real class.
So funny.
Many years later. So in the end, I ended up moving to America. This is going to take the whole podcast.
That's okay. I love the story.
No, I love the story. Yeah.
But I ended up moving to America. Why did I move to America? The Virgin called me up and said, we need to get a game done really quick for McDonald's. Would you be willing to get it done? And I said, sure. And so they said, like, lock your front door, get in an airplane, come to California. We'll take care of everything. Just get this game done. So we make this McDonald's game. And then the McDonald's executives show up to take a look at it, and they absolutely hate our game. It's because we didn't put Ronald McDonald in the game, and we don't like Ronald McDonald. So they insisted that he was put in the game. So we sort of snuck him in at the end of a level. He'd be waving a flag or something. But we launched the game, and the game ended up winning Game of the Year. And Game of the Year for a licensed game was, if you think about it, I'm only there just to get this thing done. But now Sega and Virgin are like, please stay. We want to keep going. Yeah. So this ended up with me just going, I'm not going to go back to England. To hell with England. I want to stay in America. I ended up becoming American. I pledged my allegiance to the flag.
Wow.
But what happened then was, I did a bunch of other stuff, but the one that was most interesting, I think, was getting to make the Matrix video games. And the Wachowski brothers at the time, now Lana and Lily. There you go. Lana and Lily are the Wachowskis now. But at the time, they had reached out, and they, the talent from the Matrix was just ridiculous. Like the quality of that first movie. I'm assuming you guys were fans.
100%.
Huge.
I'm the idiot that turned it down. So they offered me the rights to the Matrix, and I said, no, I'm a bit busy right now. Think about this.
They're still coming now, new stuff. Oh my God.
I'm sitting in the audience with my wife, and she's like, you turned this down? This is unbelievable. And I'm like, I know, I'm dying. So then they contacted me afterwards, and they said, would you like to work on the second movie? And this was obviously peak Matrix, so it's when the excitement could not be sort of bigger. And we ended up making a game with them. But it was so fun to see the difference, because they actually shot an hour of movie footage just for our game. And the cost of Matrix movie footage is insane. So that, the game industry generally can't afford to do that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so to get to work with talent like that, it's life-changing,
That's awesome.
It's really life-changing. And one other one I got along the way, just to throw it out there for any video game fans, is I programmed the Aladdin video game on the Sega Genesis. And that was the first time Disney let their animators actually work with the game developers. And it was so unfair. Like, if you're an animator in the game industry, we have Disney. Like, we have actually got Disney doing our animation. It's such an unfair fight. And so when that game came out, the animation was ridiculous. Like, it pushed us forward, I think, because it meant you had to take animation way more seriously, right. Because it's so fluid. But yeah, so much fun. And so my last thing I did in the game industry was I was working on the idea of cloud gaming, which is the future of gaming. It was thinking like, well, we stream all our music, we stream our movies. We're streaming our books now.
Yeah.
Why do video games, are we going to buy the same console, as millions of other people over and over and over and over forever? Or is that going to change at some point? And video games, if you think about it, are always they have to be dumbed down because they have to be put onto a console that a lot of people can buy.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you prefer to play it on a console I can't afford? And that's actually why the arcades existed in the old days when you would have a game that cost $10,000. I want to experience that, but I don't want to spend $10,000.
Dragon
Right.
Slayer.
Right? Yeah.
Right? Dragon Slayer. Like this idea of like a cartoon 2D but in action and fluid. You could never you couldn't do that on a Commodore 64. You couldn't do it on a one of the square box IBM monochrome or you couldn't. You just couldn't. Yeah.
There's no way. And so this idea of, if you're thinking into the future of gaming, to be able to have an incredible compute in the cloud and then deliver that to any device is a kind of I think a really exciting future for the game industry. And so Sony bought our company and then built it into the PlayStation. It's called PlayStation Now. And today they're streaming all of the different PlayStation games, but they haven't yet built that next generation game that runs in the cloud. I'm just waiting for that. I think that changes everything when they make that game, because it's going to be very hard to go back to a $500 game when you just paid a $5,000 game. I think that's going to change things.
I agree with you. I think you look at even what something like a Fortnite has done, which is not a cloud game, right? Like it's still very software based. There are cloud portions of it, but it's already changed, the way we game. It's actually changed the landscape of PCs, for example, right? Like now gaming laptops is a thing, like all of these things, right? So when we actually get to cloud gaming, it's going to be huge. It's going to kind of like turn everything on its side.
Someday thing. We don't know quite when, but if I was still in the game industry, I'd be working on that first game. I'd be going hardcore to try to make that game.
Yeah.
But so then I ended up building a man cave with everything that I've ever wanted to do in it. So metalwork, woodwork, 3D printing, photography studio, everything you could possibly want. And in that, I found photography became the most interesting. I find photography to be the best gift you can give to somebody. So everyone needs pictures of themselves, but when you take pictures of people that they actually like, it becomes their social profile and they start, really using it and they love that. So it turns out to me that was of the room, that's the most fun piece of the room. But then I found that if I took pictures of influencers, then I would get lots more attention. So, it's nice to take a picture of your friend Bob, but when you actually have an influencer with 15 million followers, you get a whole different response. And so that became kind of fascinating to me. And I found myself talking to them about what's it like to be, in that space. And I mean, you just keep hearing the same story. It's not as good as it sounds, because I never get to work with people I really want to work with, the brands I really want to work with. I'm always being asked to sell things I don't really want to sell. I can't compromise to my audience. And so you can imagine me, I'm like, we got to be able to solve this. What do I know, right? I'm not from e-commerce. I'm not from, social media. I'm from the game industry, but I'm looking at going, this is a solvable problem. And the problem was I keep getting bashed on the head with this. So I would be having dinner, and there would be one of my daughter's friends is making $30,000 a month as a 12-year-old, and I'm like, she would show us video of, she went to a hotel, and the room had been filled with makeup by some agency, and she doesn't even wear makeup, so they just film it and then throw it all in the trash, and then she had this backpack, which one of the girls said, I love your backpack. And she's like, I love this backpack. I wear this backpack every day. It's my favorite. And I'm thinking to myself, I'd rather be the backpack company
Absolutely.
than the makeup company that's now in the trash can. Yeah. And so I'm like, is there a way to solve that with data? Like, is there some way we could work this out? And so that's, in the end, I'm like, damn, I'm going to do it. And I'd met this entrepreneur who was working on how to get brands and influencers to work together. And so I ended up joining forces with him, and we ended up building this company. But I'm very interested in that space, and that just evolved and evolved and evolved. We started to get we sort of realized that influencers, it seems obvious to go to the influencers first, but what you actually find is the brands are the core. They're like the they're like the honeypot
Yeah.
that it puts the influencers in. So if
Yeah.
you can get the support of brands, then it's easier to work with the influencers. So we built a technology to help brands work with influencers, and we also sort of realize that brands need to work with brands. And that sounds crazy, but if you think about the number one problem that brands have, I just went to a marketing conference and everyone was talking about iOS 14 and how Apple changed the privacy rules, and it's
Yes.
really hurting
Yeah, it's screwing with all
advertising.
our,
So
yeah.
what are you going to do? And
Yeah.
and everyone talked about, how to squeeze blood from the stone, like how to run ads and try to save a little bit of money.
Yeah.
But none of them were like just coming from a different way. And our perspective is, but brands have a lot of traffic already if you look at them as a group. So if
Yeah.
we have over 30,000 brands using our technology now, together they have 350 million visitors a month. So if you have 350 million visitors that are already in this system monthly,
Right.
Yeah.
why don't you partner with somebody
Yeah.
and get access to their traffic? So you sell bicycles, I sell helmets. You don't have helmets. Would you like to sell my helmets? Maybe I'll sell your bikes. I don't know, maybe, but definitely sell my helmets. Now my helmets are in your traffic and I'm getting your traffic for free. So by getting brands to work together, if you think about it, that you're getting that traffic for free forever, not just like a
Yeah.
click or something. You get it all day, every day, month after month, as long as you stay friends with that brand.
Yep.
So you want to be on best behavior, and work well together. But if you do, then you say, well, how many more of those relationships do you want? Like there's loads. You want to be in the skateboard stores. You want to be on all the bike stores. I mean, there's lots of places for you to go, and we can do that. So we built the technology to sort of make that possible, but we made it really easy. So what we realized is wholesale, which still exists today, shockingly, is you're buying limited amounts of products. So if I say, let's get helmets, well, then the first thought is what colors are going to sell? I don't know. So they got 24 colors. I'm not buying all 24. I'll try these 3, right? And then, well, what sizes you wanted? And maybe, the big size and the medium, like maybe 3 sizes.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you use technology, we can just take all the helmets and all the colors and all the sizes and just wire them straight into your store. Thanks to the internet, it's all just connected together. So effectively, all of their inventory becomes your inventory, and so it allows you to just fundamentally think about your business differently, because now you're going to work out what your audience wants, not what you as a buyer think. I see the worst buying decisions. We used to be by a mall, and they would have like a whole store, and some buyer would be like, lemons are in, and the whole store would be dressed with lemons and everything's lemon print and all the rest of it. It's like, lemons better be in.
Well, we're ex-retail buyers, you know
"No."
that, right? Both of us came
Oh,
from
really?
retail buying.
Really?
And what you're saying is that,
100%
you'd
it.
come in
Yeah.
and show me 4 things, and I'd be looking at it thinking, well, fuck, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
based on what I've seen, based on the shows I've gone to, based on what I'm seeing online, yeah, I think this one looked pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Let's do this.
And then what do? You take a
Let's
chance
do
and you
this.
buy them.
Let's go.
You roll the
Right.
dice.
And that could be your lemons, right? And then you put them at store and you're thinking, well, shit, that didn't do that good.
Well, you
Or
gamble,
the other
you
thing is,
gamble
oh, man,
part
I
of your
crushed it,
P&L,
right?
right? Like
Well,
you hope this works, or I'm writing off a bunch of
because you
stuff,
just
and then
don't-
I
you
gotta
don't
hit another
know.
home run, so I don't have to worry about it, right? But
and to your point, like
Yeah.
the way you're doing, in the old ways, or I guess it's not even the old ways, the way it's still done you don't know until you've committed
yeah,
a shit ton of dollars to inventory. Someone's had to build all this stuff. It's moved around the country 50,000 times. It's in the store. Now we're waiting for somebody to bump into it, as opposed to, hey, this comes in 75 different sizes. None of them are here. Relax. And what do you like?
Yeah.
What do you want?
there's a whole bunch of things there, right? Like I think even if I go back to brands collaborating with brands,
so much opportunity.
The conversation that you just had, or the scenario you just gave us, Kenny and I brokered a conversation between 2 brands, and we're awfully familiar with one brand, and then I knew the guy at another brand that thought we should do some work together, but it took us 3 conversations just to get the 2 to the table, right?
3 conversations just to get the conversation.
Because you come into this like 2 cautious partners, and nobody wants to give anything away. What we're trying to do is just have a frank conversation, but at the end of the day, what we're really trying to say is, well, that's exactly it is. You sell bicycles and I sell helmets. Why don't we just do that together? How do we do that? But you got to do this like the old school way is you got to do a dance. You got to take one on the date. You got to.
Why am I talking to you?
Like,
Why aren't you talking
like somewhere
to
along the
me?
way we need to sign an NDA
Oh
so
my
we can talk
God.
frankly. Like it's like 6 months in the making, right? But
And for
like
what?
on a
And 90 times out of 10, they
platform,
don't go anywhere.
yeah,
Right.
but on a platform, it takes all that crap out of it, right? Because you just go,
Absolutely.
look, guys, it's this pure, right? Is I have a product that if I wasn't involved, a retailer would go, you have bikes, he has helmets. I don't give a flying rat's ass what you guys want. They go together, so I'm putting them
Right.
together. I'm going to sell them, right? Like, so it's
Well, imagine this from a data perspective. We actually know what helmets sell. So you're about to add a helmet to your store, and we're like, don't add that helmet.
Don't do that one. Don't do that one.
Not a good helmet.
yeah. Statistically, that one gets you a bigger basket if the
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We have really good examples of that, and it's just funny because that matters too. Like what's hot right now? Like what's hot, and we know because we have all that data, and so I think it changes everything. Like I talked to this brand who makes spaghetti, and this lady had three different colors of spaghetti,
Right.
and I'm like, what are your plans like to expand and blow this up? And she's like, well, I'm thinking of adding another color, and I'm like, so what's the plan then? A checkout, you're going to upsell spaghetti with the spaghetti?
Well, yeah. Where are you going with this one?
Is this the thing? And by the way, your website is absolutely beautiful, and it has incredible recipes on it. But you insist that if anyone wants to make anything that you recommend, they have to go to other websites. like you will not help them with this. You're going to just tease them with and she has beautiful table lays with cutlery and all the rest of it.
Oh.
That have to be bought from somebody and tie well with what you're selling.
Yeah, you're going to go to Amazon and start hunting, try to find all these things. And it just doesn't seem to me like the best way to merchandise. It also means the site is always the same. Like you come back there and it's always the same three items. That's the store. What happens is once you start to think of this idea of virtual wholesale, that means that you can take the helmets and put them in your store, and then you can change your mind. I don't want to sell helmets. No problem. There's no restocking fees. There's no returns. There's no clearance sale. So what that changes in your mind is, well, in that case, I can have anything, anytime, right? So therefore, it's going to be Valentine's Day. Can I get a whole bunch of stuff for Valentine's Day and liven up my store for Valentine's Day, and then just clear it out right afterwards? Of course you can, right? Halloween. 4th of July, the holidays, whatever you want, you can actually now make your store alive by putting relevant products in. So we made a list of all of the things that happen in the year, and there's a holiday for everything. Like for every, there's bicycle day. There's a day for everything. Bicycle chain day.
But you're right. But think of that. International Coffee Day, International Bike Day. All the religions now, because the world's gotten very small, there's always somebody's religious ceremony on any given day. There's always something going on that, again, because we came from the traditional retail in the stores, I can't react that fast. I can't buy that way. I don't have time. 6 months between holidays isn't enough time sometimes to get rid of the shit that I got stuck with. It's not that easy.
We're recording this on April 21st, and today is Get to Know Your Customers National Day. It's National High Five Day. It's also National Chocolate Covered Cashews Day.
There you go.
National Kindergarten Day. And then this one's the best one, because I don't know what kind of bat we're referring to, but it's National Yellow Bat Day.
There you go. There's someone with bats.
How do you buy for that?
I love this stuff, because the thing is, if you're sitting there trying to keep your brand fresh, why not? Why wouldn't you think that way and start to try to do that stuff? And so what we think is, which is kind of again a weird perspective, but I'm starting to think that influencers are becoming brands and brands are becoming influencers. And what that means is when a brand builds a store, they're actually becoming curators of the store in the form of a taste profile. And what do I mean by that? I mean, what we
Mhm.
learn about influencers is influencers are do a brand deal to sell a bag. But when you look in the comments, they're actually looking at everything in the picture. They're looking at the
Yeah.
sunglasses. They're talking to
Right,
It's a full
wallpaper.
lifestyle, right?
What
right.
is
It's
that they're
yeah,
eating? What
yeah,
restaurant are they in? Right?
yeah.
There's a conversation going on about everything, and
Yep.
and brands are actually the same. They just don't realize it. They think they're selling some shoes, and they can't imagine anyone would want anything else. But in reality, they do. And so this is a kind of a fun changeover. So the thing is that influencers, I think honestly, I think that everything's about to change for them because with these new privacy rules and
Mhm.
as advertising becomes more and more expensive, what's
Mhm.
going to happen with influencers is I think they're going to end up becoming the retailers. And the reason is if you ask an influencer, would you like the brand to sell the product, or would you like to sell the product? Like, do you want to own the customers, or would you like them to own the customers?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, every influencer that you see make the move from follower to customer, the enterprise value goes up exponentially. So if you look at Kim Kardashian, she has Skims, and Skims is valued at over $3 billion now.
Right.
You have Rihanna with Fenty Beauty, over $3 billion, and it's because they've taken their followers and converted
It's
them.
brought them over. Right,
But not someone else's customers.
right,
Ultimately,
Mhm.
they're able to
Mhm.
remarket to those people and keep that relationship. Today, what happens is most influencers just send their clicks to somewhere like Amazon, and
Mhm.
Amazon keeps all the customers,
Mhm.
and they get a few percent. If you're the retailer, you get about 10 times, you get paid about 10 times as much. So you want to be the retailer of record and own the customers. It's a game changer. And so then you say to yourself, well, what percentage of the influencers in the world today, and this is a question to you, what percentage of the influencers today have made that transition and actually own the customers and are considered the retailer? Like out of 100%, what percentage would you say have made the transition?
oh, peanuts,
It's got to be small. Maybe
I think
peanuts,
2%, 3%.
maybe.
I would say it's maybe
I
1%,
say maybe,
but
maybe.
I'd not even be 1%.
I don't
So
think it's that.
what's the opportunity space there? And you
Jesus
go, well,
Christ.
how big is e-commerce globally? It's 5.5 trillion this year with a T. So here am I in the game industry thinking it's the biggest thing ever. If you're in the game industry, you feel like you're on a rocket ship. We're 100 billion. I imagine now it's more than 100 billion. And um, and then you come to the e-commerce space, you're at 5.5 trillion. It's just insane. And so I think the influencers, as they make this transition, are going to get a bite of that. And so the thing is, at the end of the day, they're going to need to partner with brands. So I think that partnership that happens with brands is going to be very, very important. And the really, really smart brands are going to be the ones that also white label some of their stuff so it can
Right.
be influencers. You're going to see, a curve on that as people understand the value of that. But what we found is that when you talk to like music artists or to a lot of influencers, they think they have to have their logo on something for it to be theirs. So, the t-shirt has to have their logo,
Right.
or therefore you can't sell it. But then you look at someone like Bono at U2, people want to buy his sunglasses.
It's a sunglass. I was going to say those glasses are cool.
It
I
doesn't
don't,
have to say Bono on it,
I don't
right?
care what's names on. I just want to have those glasses.
Yeah, I just think,
Yeah.
they're helping people discover cool things.
Right.
What I find is in photography, some of my favorite photographers, like they'd make a comment, this is the best light I've ever used, it's incredible, and then I'd go buy the light and it's the best light I've ever used, right?
Right.
And because they know what they're talking about, and that loop of trust and respect really matters. And so you start to find people, in social media that you genuinely trust, and they can't break that. So that's really important that they have real authentic relationships. So for me, you can see probably, maybe it's starting to probably become clear why I find this space fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is really an
It's pretty cool.
interesting space. And
It's
at some point we can do it with the game industry. How many influencers are playing video games? If you look at Twitch and that whole space, it's
well,
insane.
you look at even the early YouTubers, like the Dan TDMs of the world and folks like that play Minecraft, right? Like my kids are, my oldest is 20 now, so he grew up, 100% on Minecraft, right? And so watching those guys play, they're huge influencers, right? Like everything that Dan TDM had. So everything you said is exactly, my kid would show up and go, listen, I only saw for a quick second, but I know exactly what keyboard and what keys Dan TDM was using in his video. Could we
Yeah.
please go and get that keyboard? Could we get, and then he has these modules for Minecraft, so could I please, right? Like all these sort of things, right? It's, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just how it is. If there's someone that you really, really admire and you want to be like them, you want to play like them, and they have a certain keyboard or a certain chair, that's the most appealing keyboard and chair to you. It might, you can argue it's a bad idea or whatever, but not to them. It's
Not relevant, man. It's not a bad idea.
No.
I want that chair,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's no different than having, that glove, right? Like in the old days, the shortstop who had the great glove, right? Tony Fernandez here in Toronto or whatever, era you're from. It's sports did it. Like why can't everybody else do it, right?
Why
Everybody else is
did
doing the
people
same
stop
thing.
wearing CCM and went to Jofa helmets for
Yeah.
hockey? Because
Yeah.
Gretzky wore a Jofa helmet, right?
Yeah.
And you'd think, well, ugliest thing, nobody wanted him before
No.
that. He put it on thinking, oh my God, well, obviously you can't play hockey without that helmet because look at him. So if you want to be like him, you got to get that helmet.
Yeah.
I got no choice.
Yeah. So I love watching all of this evolve, and
That's so crazy how fast things are going to change though, and where it's all gone that way.
yeah.
Wow.
Can we go back a second? So, because right about now you've gotten us all wound up on this, and I'm sure that we have a lot of brands who are going to be all wound up on this. So maybe walk us through this part. So I'm a brand, like what's typical for us, right? We would have brands that, we have them all shapes and sizes that listen to us, that follow us, that have talked to us, but the ones that I guess the prototypical would be someone who said, I built a product, and in the last, kind of couple of years, I've now built myself a bricks and mortar and an e-com business. I've gone from like bricks and mortar, I've gone from 0 to, kind of 8, 9, 1,000 stores. I've got distribution. My e-com business is now growing like crazy. More than likely, they built themselves on Shopify. That's probably the kind of predominant platform. What is like how does a brand like that start working with someone like you? Like, so how do you know what I mean? Like maybe walk us through some of that, because I think that would help.
I think so.
Kind of
What's
some
the
of these
trigger? Like
guys
when do
start
they
to,
even
like,
know?
really,
Like why am I talking to
Yeah.
you? Like why do I listen to podcasts and get excited? And what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah, well, we have a problem. It's a bit like a dating site, honestly. If you think about brands, they're all interested in different ways of who they're willing to date.
Yeah.
And the bigger the brands, the more selective they become
Right.
about who they're willing to date. And so
Yeah.
we had to build all of that into our system, where we help, in a way, velvet rope the really big brands so they can work with each other easily. They want to know, like, are we vouching for this brand? Is this really a legit company that we should be looking at? Yes, this one is. And so that's part of the process, is when you onboard. If you're a little tiny brand, like imagine your brand hasn't sold anything yet. You're just, it's aspirational. I'm going to sell something someday. Those brands, instead of saying, hey, you should go try and do deals within the network, we say to them, you should be working on growing. And we built a whole technology, which we call influencer checkout, where you can start to invite influencers to shop for free. And they come in and they buy your products, and you just have to click approve. So they make requests, you click approve, and we generate the order. So you have no work to do. You only click approve, and the influencer gets the products. So grow. And once you grow, then, start trying to partner up with people. But so people generally want to partner with other people with real sales and real, real
Makes
traffic.
sense. Yeah.
But
That makes sense.
in your analogy, that example brand is already killing it. So to some extent, they're going to come in and say, okay, there's two possible ways to work with this. There's the first is, I'd like to think about getting other stores that I respect to sell my products.
Mhm.
And so we just wire them together. So if the brands are already on our network, it's actually, you know, it's instant. You can just say yes, yes, and they start working together. If it's a brand that's not on our network, but they're on Shopify, there's 2 million brands on Shopify. If there's one out there that you really love, you know, just tell us and we can have them install and the two of you work together. Like immediately the minute they install, you can start doing business together. And so the opportunity space as far as the 2 million brands that are out there is great. What we love is those connections the most. So yes, I can market and get somebody, but if I can get two brands that love each other,
Mhm.
How cool is
we
that?
find sometimes we've had as much as 10 to 1. So one brand brings in 10 others where all the CEOs are friends and they want to collaborate.
Yep.
And I could give you examples of why that is, but
Yep.
I think so that's generally they very commonly know who they want to work with, or else we'll help them do that. And we have all kinds of really cool tech. Like one of the tech that we use is we look at the influencers from each of the brands. So
Mhm.
this one that just joined, we look at their influencers versus the influencers on other brands, and we actually do an aesthetic match through influencer taste.
Oh,
So
really?
because how would you ever like it's too when you have too many
Yeah.
brands, a million brands, how do you know that
Yeah, you don't.
you know this one and that one should
Yeah.
talk?
Right.
So we do it through this fingerprint that we've created with the influencers, so we can see because they're the best taste sort of filter.
You
And
are
find if there's a pattern
Tinder
on the wall.
for
Yeah, what
you're
happens is
you're like you're like Tinder for brands and
it
influencers.
is. It is like literally there's AI running in the background trying to help you work out who you should meet. But what happens is the the brand will say, I have never heard of these people, but they're really cool. And it's like, well, of course they are. They're just like you.
They're just like you.
You know, it's kind of a funny
That's
thing. But
funny.
so back to your example, they could come in and they can say, look, I'd like other people to sell my products. And that makes them a supplier. So they become the supplier and they're able to sell with anyone else that's willing to stock their products. That's how you get a lot of traffic for free. And that, you know, that's obviously very cool because that reduces your acquisition cost profoundly. But the next thing is, well, what if if you think about it, what if you're actually in this case, I'm pushing my products into other people's traffic. But what if I need products for my store, or I'm thinking of expanding and becoming more of a marketplace?
Right.
Well, then you just look through our catalog and you choose brands that you'd like to work with. And we have some AI for that as well. If you show us a product, we can scan the database for something like that, you know, with visual recognition. And
Mhm.
so then that will help you find specific products you're really searching for. But ultimately, that allows you to add and augment to your store. So let's say you sell makeup. Do you sell
Mhm.
brushes? They'll be like, well, we're not making our own brushes. We're not really in the brush business. We're in the makeup business. Yeah, you should be selling brushes too. Trust me. And we'll find a partner that you really like and you can sell their brushes and have that immediately. So you can see how that starts to come together. We've added another
Yeah.
tech recently, which is bundles. So you can sell the whole bundle,
Mhm.
it's the entire outfit as one SKU as well.
Mhm. How do you work out? So I get that part now. So I get the matching bits. I get the matchmaking has always been very difficult, right? Like finding and then creating the conversation between brands and other brands. Creating conversations with retailers is ridiculously difficult because retailers want opportunity but don't really actually want to talk to anybody about the opportunity. They just want it there. But how do you also help them work out trading terms, or that's kind of up to the two brands to figure out?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
they literally
okay,
agree on that per deal.
okay.
So
Yeah.
whatever their deal is. And retailers actually are kind of funny because we did talk to a very major retailer that I thought was kind of funny because they said to us, could you help us decide what to buy because you have all this data? And so we literally built this whole interface so that they could, you know, go in and try to work out what they should buy based
Hmm.
upon business intelligence.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we don't want any interface. Just tell us what to buy.
Yeah. Yeah. Retailer, look, so
They're a
anyone that
different
gets into
breed.
things that with retailers, Kenny would have even more experience with this than I would, but like retailers are experts at one, not being found. They don't want to be contacted, and yet they want what they want and they want it somehow delivered, even though they don't want to talk to anybody to get it, right? Like retailers are infamous for going to shows and like swapping out badges when they were going in real life so that nobody knew that they were a
So you
buyer.
wouldn't be
And you kind of
found.
go,
Yeah.
how does one talk to you and tell you about the brand if you don't want to be found? Like I don't.
Yeah.
But it's such a they're funny animals that way.
Well,
I think the industry's changing now, but back then it
Yeah, I
was,
think it's
you
going to
know,
be a data-driven business, and
yeah,
it's going to make them deadly when they use
yeah,
their once they
yeah,
use data, they're going to not you're going to find it hard to go back. At the time when we were having those meetings, we pulled the data to see what the top selling item across all 30,000 brands was, and
hmm
that week it was leg makeup, and we all looked at each other and went, "What's leg
What's leg
makeup?"
makeup?
leg makeup.
And it's funny because obviously some influencer somewhere must have been talking about it and
Yeah,
causing a fuss about it, but it was we were finding it was a very high from discovering what it is. I think what happened is people were like, we got to try this. Like, the customers, I think, were when they first heard about it, were like, well, I got to try that. I've never even heard of that before. Like, what does that do to your legs? And so I don't know. I think data is gonna really surface some interesting.
But
Uh,
how does a retailer work? So you got to go back, like, because how does a traditional retailer work around that? Because leg makeup's hot this week, right? Like you said, I have no freaking idea what leg makeup is. I was a buyer. I sit there thinking
makes your
someone would
legs
come in.
pretty.
I know, but
Yeah.
someone would come and say, "Hey, leg makeup." I thinking, what are you doing? Trying to offend me? What are you saying? What are
Yeah.
you doing here? I don't know what the hell you're talking about. By the time I get my shit together and figure it out and do all the bullshit logistics to get it into a store, it's not leg makeup anymore. It's toe makeup now, or arm makeup, or somebody
Well,
else's. So this is like we said. I guess this is where potentially where your brand now, on behalf of an influencer, is pushing is someone's selling. I mean, what I'm wondering is like, what happens to the retailer in a few years? Because at that point, if I like it and I really want it, and I'm seeing it now, where do you think I'm going to go and do this? Like, I'm doing the deal, right?
but Kenny, I think there's so to me, I think there's two things there. One is I think because the model you have is like the one that you're talking about is a bricks and mortar. So in a bricks and mortar, I there's a different play. Like I think
100%.
like if you're a bricks and mortar business that has online, now you're unlocking the piece that every
You're trying to,
retailer, well, every
but you're still a
retailer,
bricks and mortar
like
retailer.
every retailer that's a bricks and mortar business has like between 15 and 18% of their stuff is online, right?
Right,
And they desperately want that to be like
right,
45.
right,
So, and I think David's got the piece that helps you get a chunk of the way there because now you're going, I don't need to behave like a regular bricks and mortar business. I don't need to
right,
move 1,000 pallets of anything. This week it's leg, and
right.
maybe I move a pallet of that stuff. Cool. I can do that, right? Like I can make this deal. I can make it now, and I can get this done. I do think that the analytics is where you start to make bigger bets, so you can say, all right, so you know what? Leg comes back every year because I don't know, it's April, and if you live in Canada, you're a bit pasty, but you don't want to look like you're pasty because you didn't have money to go away to a beach. So we're going to sell a pallet of leg makeup every April because nobody wants to look pasty in
Right.
April until the sun comes into May. Right? Maybe I just made up a
I
trend.
get,
I don't know.
who
But
knows?
you know what I mean? Like, but now all of a sudden to a retailer, there's an online play that gets me a short burst that helps me gain share, but then the long-term data tells me here's how I crush it, right? Like here's how I market the shit out of it. So next April, maybe I sell 3 pallets, 4 pallets, 5 pallets of this because I figured out what everyone's after with the. Do you
I
know?
guess
Like it. I
I
don't know if
totally agree with you. I guess my
I'm
point is
I
you're
haven't
putting
let
more
David
faith in
talk
the
yet, but
retailer. But I think
but
that's
that's
what
what
I
I'm
think is.
thinking.
I think you
Yeah.
put more faith in the retailer than I'm going to put in the retailer, because the online business just didn't happen during COVID. Like, it seems to people think it's all of a sudden it was COVID. Retailers like retail figure, oh, there's an online play. It was gifted to them. Someone from
Yeah,
above or wherever threw this bug
but
on
the
the
truth
planet, and away we
is
go.
there's the momentum's there now, right? Like
Right.
online isn't
But can
going
they actually do it
away.
though now? Can they capitalize on it?
I don't know.
Because I'm not convinced
Well,
that the
I think they're
retailer
gonna
did
have
anything
to,
except
right?
show up.
I
I don't
think
think
they're
there was a thought.
yeah.
So guys, I told you we're going to have a fun conversation. Did you think we were going to be talking about wig makeup?
We don't tell Leg Makeup still. We don't know what
we
it
love
is.
it. We love
love
it. We love it. We love it. This is
Like,
fantastic.
I've got tattoos, so I'm thinking Leg Makeup maybe says like a tattoo. I don't know.
So I have a different perspective, which is
Yeah.
I think stores are going to get smaller. I think what's going to happen is that when you go to the mall and you have these mega stores with
They
all
can't
of that,
exist.
all those inventory problems, I think what's going to happen is you're going to have more experiential stores.
Right.
You
Right.
go in to
Agree.
smell the thing, touch the thing,
Yeah.
feel the thing, try it on, and then you're going to hit a button on a digital
go home.
Right.
POS, and it'll be at your house tomorrow, guaranteed, or same day in certain
Mhm.
circumstances. And that changes everything when they start thinking that way, because it means you can put stores in every mall. You can have your brand in every single mall because you've got a much smaller footprint, and you're thinking experientially and making it really fun and cool. And
I think that's the cool part, though. I guess that's why I have little faith in traditional retail of really
Yeah.
grasping this. If it's not going to be, horseshoe luck that they really had in the last couple of years, which was COVID. I mean, not that that's lucky for a lot of people, obviously, but they took a benefit that was just handed to them. It's not that they went out and did anything creative. It's not that anybody was thinking in the basement of how to do this. It landed on their lap. Once this slows down, I'm not convinced that they have the ability to rethink this and get it going. Where you had like a store like an Apple or whoever it was, where you went in, there wasn't a ton of stuff you could buy. It's not, the store's not packed. Like half the stuff, you know what it is they'll show me, I get to play with, I touch it. Yeah, you can order be at the house tomorrow. And I leave thinking, fuck, that's pretty good. I get it tomorrow. Where I'm thinking, well, why am I excited? Like in the old days, I was supposed to be able to buy it like right now.
In my hand, yeah.
But that's okay. At least I know now what it's going to do. I'm stoked, right? This thing's going to kill it. I'm okay waiting.
I think so. Here's where, like, David said earlier that brands and influencers are gonna kind of swap places.
Yeah.
But I also think that brands and retailers are gonna do some swaps. Like, it's already happening, right? So if you look at Nike in the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
Nike is on a record pace. Like, they've dropped something like 50 or 60 retailers in North America alone, right, in the last 2 years, because they've said, why am I selling to designer shoe warehouse or shoe factory? These guys don't do anything for me.
Do anything for me.
My Air Zoom, my Air Pegasus goes in there. Nobody knows anything about these things, right? They're just on the shelf. So I can do that, and I can deliver a better value with people going to my website than they can coming to the store. And so they've started to drop all these guys, right? These guys are all because they haven't done anything, but that also forces retail to be more experiential, right? Because the guys that want to stay, Foot Locker, right, has transformed their business because they're petrified of losing that portion. They need to be experiential in order to keep these, right?
Well, there's no other reason, folks. I could just go to the brand and just buy. I don't need to retail.
But I think that's going to be part of this too, is now, the evolution of the business starts to make this more like, I think this is where the retailers who matter are going to be able to, like, do something with this.
This is nuclear bomb kind of stuff. If you
totally
right, the reason is because data is everything.
That's it.
Once you've tasted the data, and what I mean by data, I don't mean data as in just like a bunch of numbers. I'm talking about you have a direct relationship with that customer.
Yeah,
you've seen that they've bought these shoes 4 times. You're going to have some special event at a place near there. You want to make them a bit of a VIP because they now matter to you. You didn't have that with before.
No.
You didn't know anyone that was doing anything. We used to have that problem actually back in the video game industry. I used to make cartridge-based games, and it's the scariest thing ever. We'd make the game and we'd ship it, and there's no communication with the gamers ever because there was no internet. So there was not even a feedback loop. I don't even know what level they got. So I don't know if they ever completed the game. I know nothing, and that's terrible. And once the internet came along and we could start actually watching and saying, oh my goodness, this level's too hard. And then they start patching the games and making them work better for everybody. It's like that with retail. I think when COVID hit, a lot of products were actually returned. So it was I mean, if you had a warehouse at the time,
Oh,
it was not good because all the retailers were just sending your stuff back to you saying, we're not going to be selling it. And you're left with all of, just an absolute nightmare.
right.
And so this idea of selling online directly to the consumer not only gives you a much better margin, or,
Obviously.
better deal, you get the customers. And
Right.
so that's one other thing that we allow in our platform is that when a brand sells a product, that they can actually transmit the order over to the supplier and include the customer. And that's a stunning relationship growth situation. So imagine you're the helmet company and customers are just appearing out of nowhere into your customer database at a customer acquisition cost of zero because they're just being added.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's like how many of those would you like? And the answer is not every brand will allow that. But when brands are really, really close and they don't feel they're competing,
Right. They're
like,
augmenting or complementing each other, right?
yeah, we're
That's-
complementing each other,
Yeah.
then they actually permit
Yeah.
that. And so I think that's kind of a fascinating piece of it. But there's also business expansion. There's a company called BlendJet that makes this handheld blender,
Okay.
very popular with influencers. And what it is when you blend something and you pour it in a glass, then it starts to settle and you end up drinking the settled version.
Right.
With a portable blender, you give it a zap just before you drink, and it's always blended, which is actually a very cool upgrade to that sort of space. But BlendJet didn't have refrigerated warehousing, so couldn't sell what goes in the blender. So you have all these ingredients, oat milks and things like that they want to sell. And so what was kind of fun is they brought a whole bunch of brands into our platform, including Oatly, which was very nice of them. As a result, we ended up with a whole bunch of brands that could sell the things that go in a blender. And then BlendJet made the killer move, which is something that I think is also kind of fascinating for online commerce, is always ask yourself the question, are they ever going to need to restock this? Because if they do, sell them that now, right?
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah.
getting your whatevers. Would you like me to just go ahead and automatically send
That's a
you one?
subscription base, which is kind of cool, right? I
Yep.
don't have to worry about it anymore.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
The average order value goes up. We've seen people with average order values go up 80%.
Yeah.
Just by thinking a little bit differently. And that part of that modern thinking for how to interface with your customers is, is there any way to turn this into a longer transaction with you than just this current visit? But you see why that direct relationship to that customer matters. Imagine you're selling this protein powder and it's through some store and you've got no relationship to that buyer ever. That's not the best.
No, but the unfortunate part is, so like, that's what I guess I was getting back to. That is sort of the reality today,
Yeah.
right? There is nothing.
Yeah.
There is nothing
Yeah.
in between. How much cooler would it be as if you could get to the end user and have that talk? You never know what they get back from them. Hey, have you ever thought about this flavor, David? How about this stuff? Have you ever thought about adding this to it? Whatever it is, because they'll do that with you, obviously, right? Once they get to know you too, right? The relationships go both ways, right?
Yeah, and probably the one
Doesn't
other
happen
thing,
in stores.
one other thing to think about is all these brands that are selling on Amazon. That's another interesting place in a moment in time. So Amazon is an unbelievable platform for selling on, but Amazon's very interested in taking over your category,
Yes, they are.
and they create private labels
Yes, they do.
endlessly. And I have a thing which I talk about, which I think is funny, is I found in you take a piece of leather and you want to put the letter A in it, you buy a little brass stamp with the letter A and you hit it with a hammer, and you can put letters in leather. Amazon makes their own leather stamps. And I laughed when I saw this because, are you kidding me? They're already making leather stamps. And so then I would say to brands, how safe do you feel? Whatever category you're in, you're in white socks. How safe do you feel knowing they're already in leather stamps? Like they are coming after you.
Absolutely.
I think
I can give you
yeah.
horror stories. I know people have had
Yeah.
containers land and it's too late because their product's already now an Amazon product.
But
Never
they're
get the buy
already
box, they're done.
they I think the thing about Amazon that's amazing and terrible at the same time is they say they're a tech company, right? Because I always say that they're a tech company and not a retailer, but they behave like a retailer,
The worst
like
kind of
a
retailer.
certain world's largest retailer that's in multiple countries is renowned for putting apparel companies out of business, right? Like I probably know 4 or 5 labels, like the people that ran those labels who said this certain number one retailer in the world came to us and said, listen, we want to just license your brand because we'll be able to buy your t-shirts for cheaper than you can buy them. Trust us on this.
Mhm.
You can fight with us and we'll just show you, or you should just trust us and just we'll license it. We'll cut you a little check every month and
Be
we
happy.
pretty much own the brand, right? And you kind of go, what just happened? Like I had my brand like swept out from underneath me, right? So
They were-
I like your model because it allows you to be able to do that and then control who lands on you know, because right now on your Amazon page you don't control any of it, right? Like people bid for that spot, you know, all sorts of crap lands, as adjacent products, right? And not necessarily, it's not data driven, right? Like, well, it's Amazon
It's data driven
3D
by
data
Amazon
driven.
because you're competing with Amazon too. Remember, they
It's
have they
well,
have their own
no, it's
warehouse of their
Amazon
stuff.
self-interest driven, right? It's not
Absolutely.
necessarily consumer interest driven.
No.
My dream for this is that we build like an organism of brands that all help each other.
Imagine
Um,
that.
So imagine you were to leave Amazon and you're out there in the cold internet buying each click from Google or Facebook. That's a tough existence. Or you
Yeah,
join in with a whole bunch of people working
yeah,
together.
yeah.
The reason is that will ultimately give us the ability to negotiate with shipping companies and things like that as a
Right.
network. I
Mhm.
think the value of a network negotiating versus an individual brand
Right.
is
Agree.
profoundly different. But I'm also hoping that people help each other. In the game industry, I was on the board of the Game Developers Conference for 10 years, and we basically, as you watch that thing grow, it was so fascinating to see how much sharing was going on. Like people would share not only what game they're working on, but what they're doing next and how they're doing it. And you're like, really? You're willing to like share that information? The answer is yes, because they're also learning from other people telling them stuff
Absolutely.
that's inspiring them. And you've got the best of the best getting up to a microphone and sharing what they're doing. It was an incredible thing.
That's pretty
And
cool.
so
That's
I would
awesome.
love to see that in e-commerce where I do get little tastes of it when I go to like a marketing conference or something. Someone will throw something out there, like some information of how to get access to something, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, that's so helpful!" Right? Yes, but can't we just do that at scale? Like, can we have? There's an expert in every subject. Like
Right.
someone really, really into shipping. There's someone really into product photography.
Yeah.
You know, can we share that information? It's very common people have knowledge and they don't value their own knowledge.
Right.
And I see this all the time. Like I
Yeah.
got into when I built my man cave, I got into woodworking, and I'm one of these people that kind of goes obsessive when I'm into something and I'm all in. I'm flying to Iowa to learn how to make rocking chairs, and you go to a conference on woodworking, and people will stand up and go, "Oh, I use this this varnish." And then you go, but hold on a minute, you've been doing this for 30 years and you've decided that after 30 years this is the best varnish.
Yeah.
And they place
I'll never
no
get there.
value.
Yeah, I'll never get there. Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, I'm like, well, that's the one I'm going to use. And you
That's what
put
I'm
it,
using because you just told me. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, you
And-
saved
and
me
thank
like
you.
hundreds of
30 years of
dollars in
work.
varnish. Yeah.
Right. That's everywhere in e-commerce. People
Yeah.
have that information. So even you guys, when you're talking and creating these conversations, there are nuggets that are constantly being generated. That in a way that what you're doing is a piece of that future that I want to see.
It is our hope, actually.
I want to
Absolutely.
sharing like that. That's so. If it could just be untapped, the value of that. Because when you look at someone's website, like I've been on. On Clubhouse, for example, sometimes someone will send a link and say, have a look at my website. And we look at their website and it's like, oh my God, the product photography is terrible. And they're moments away from that being solved, right? Because, here's people you should be working with. It's going to change your life as a brand.
Yeah, just call this guy. He'll fix you and you'll be good. Yeah.
And yet
I hear
without
you.
that information, they're taking their stuff without their iPhone and they're just moving forward with that. And it's like, oh boy, this could be so easily fixed. And
It is our hope to like
that's what we try to do.
Like
That's
I
the whole
mean,
point
this
of the podcast.
podcast, is very much about that, right? Is the small moments, the things that we can share. Sometimes they're big moments like this conversation, I think. But there are a lot, right? Like, and it's amazing to hear, right? Like we've heard people say, we heard your conversation on costing, and then we went out and did these things, and yeah, it was so much easier. Like there are these moments that you just go, oh yeah, that's amazing. It's exactly what we're after, because it's not that hard, right? But it can be if you don't know what you're looking for. So
Right.
yeah,
And not having people to share. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
always with that same thing. If I don't know it, you know what? I know a guy.
Yeah.
It's always
I
a
lo-
standard line. I know a guy.
Yeah.
I used to go to the TED conference because of the ideas. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived off ideas. I went to a marketing conference recently where there was a guy talking about Facebook groups. I've never used Facebook groups. I know nothing about it. And this guy goes, I found a way to become relevant instantly in Facebook groups. And I'm like, well, how would you do that? And he goes, first of all, study what you have to pull the data and study what they're saying the most. So people keep talking. This is a group on scuba diving.
Right.
So he goes into a scuba diving group and he notices that everyone's talking about the thing they want the most is a vacation for scuba diving. Right. And he's like, okay, interesting. So then he drills into that. Where do they want to go? And of all the places mentioned for holidays, the number one is shark diving in Mexico. So he then calls a guy in Mexico who takes people shark diving and does a Zoom call with them. And then he posts that video into the group, and suddenly he's a rock star.
He's a rock star, man. You just connect with that. My dream is now a reality. Right.
So this is how it works. This is what it costs. Here's what you need to do. Here's what you need. It's just, you can imagine how potent that is as a bomb, just to drop right into that group. And suddenly you become relevant. And so I love that stuff, right? These are just ideas, but I love ideas. And so that kind of sharing, when you get people to just step and go, well, here's what I did. It's like, to him, it's nothing, no big deal. But to me, that's like genius,
Yeah, it takes you 20 years to figure it out.
Hello, my name's Bob. Right? I like scuba diving too. Whatever. Who cares? It doesn't matter. So
David Perry, we're out of time. But thank you for coming.
Awesome,
this is amazing. We're so glad that you were able to come on. This has been really amazing.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
No, that was wicked.
Yeah.
Man. So if we have listeners that are listening to you and maybe want
where do they find you
to learn a little bit more, or have you push them, well, how do they find you?
Our company website is Get Carro. So get CARRO.com. If they have a Shopify store, go ahead and install Carro and check it out. But please email us to hello@getcarro.com and mention this podcast, and we will take VIP care of you. So just
thank you.
That was nice, man. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
That was so cool. Honestly, that it's funny.
It's so fantastic.
Phil's in Toronto and I'm in Vancouver, except today Phil's in my basement. I'm upstairs because we were worried about reverb on the podcast because he's in town for a conference. And I'm just thinking, okay, get this guy off the call. Phil, I'll meet you in the living room. Got a lot to talk about. Got lots of shit to do now.
It's funny.
That was awesome. I thoroughly enjoyed that. That was wonderful.
I did too.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks so much, David.
Wow.
Well, thanks so much. I'll see you guys later.
Take care, buddy. That was
Take
great.
care. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cool, dude.
We got lots to talk about after this podcast. Like, seriously. I mean, fuck.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool shit. I mean, wow. I knew where you were going too. I guess to me, all I kept hearing, because me, I'm very narrow-minded and thinking. You're hearing
narrow-minded.
I'm thinking, oh my God, if I'm a retailer, I'm shitting my pants right now. If I don't get my shit together and really start thinking about what I'm doing, like thinking, not just waiting for shit to happen and I just go for the ride, you're in trouble.
You're already there. I'm not kidding. Like the Nike example.
Your Nike example. We live in this house. We live on that.
We're doing it now.
With you.
Like there are companies. DSW is scrambling now because
they should be scrambling.
They cannot sell Nikes anymore. So what are you going to do? Nikes is going to be what, a 35-40 share of your business, if not more?
If it's in the sneaker side, what else are you buying?
Like
Absolutely.
so now you're into discount brands like Puma.
Yeah, or you're buying the Nike discount 6 times after
Yeah.
the last
You know?
Nike distributor who can't do anything with it gets it. Well, right over. And in that category, like I'm like you, like in certain categories, I wait for cool shit. Like
Yeah.
for me, I love. Okay, now we're gonna plug in Nike. I fucking love Nike. I think
Yeah.
Nike makes wicked product. I
Uh,
think I do. I think they got
I like
cool
their
shit.
Converse. I like Converse.
Oh,
I'm
I've
a
always
cons
loved
guy.
it. Come on,
I'm
seriously.
a cons guy. But
That's a
yeah.
little kid. I've been wearing them.
Yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
like their stuff, and I
Yeah.
like the quality of their stuff. I like the feel of it. I like how it makes me feel. Like I think Nike makes me feel better. It might even make me a little bit better. I don't know for sure, but it might.
Well, no, they actually have a shoe that makes you run faster.
See?
They actually do. So, yeah,
I think they do.
they do.
And if they don't, they still do. But it shows you though, like if you connect really with a brand,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, where would you buy Nike? I buy Nike at Nike.
Yeah. Well, and it comes to my house, right? Like, so I
Absolutely.
know what size I am. So I'm honestly, I'm not a huge, I buy them for the kids for sure. I myself, I don't wear Nikes like for sports and stuff, but I know what my size is. I know
Yeah.
exactly what my size is. I know what cons I could buy cons with my
Oh, I can buy
eyes
Converse
closed.
without. I don't have to look. I know
Yeah,
exactly.
with my eyes closed, I know
100%.
exactly what it is, and I'd buy them right on
Yeah.
the spot, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you kind of like,
Yeah.
and so you kind of go, why? Why? If like a Foot Locker, I might go because he might be able to tell me something about like a limited edition or a pair of Air Zooms that I didn't know
Yeah, but there's
something
15
about
guys
it.
online that can tell me that.
Yeah, but at least at Foot Locker they could tell me that. But if I'm going to DSW, they can't
Oh,
tell
they
me
can't tell
anything
me.
more about
First
it,
off, you can't
right?
find
Like,
anybody.
and then they never know whether it was this year or last year's model or any of
Phil,
those.
you know
sort
as
of
well as
things,
I
right?
do.
So,
Those are 2 or 3-year-old models. So at the end of the day, how current are they? They're not. And
yeah,
again, that's fine. I mean, their
yeah,
model was built on that. It's a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
close out second
Yeah.
hands. But you start losing a brand like that, you've
Yeah,
lost me.
you're in trouble.
Sorry,
You're in
I
trouble.
limit interest
Yeah,
then, right?
yeah,
What am I going to do?
yeah.
Right? Wow.
Anyway, I'm really glad we had David on.
I'm super happy we had him on. 'Cause I didn't know how the hell that was going to go because I
yeah.
didn't know what he did. But wow, what a
Yeah, like I
fascinating
mean,
guy.
it is something Kenny and I talked about, right? Because like, and the audience, if you've got an opinion on this, we have largely kept service provider types out because we don't like the salesy portion of what they bring normally. And so we just feel like with the audience that we have, we bring success stories and people who like bring a lot of value. So we're conscious to stay away from kind of pitchy.
Like a sales pitch. I don't want you guys
We
having to
don't
worry
like
about
pitchy
buying
platforms,
something.
right? So,
Right.
but David runs something that I think brings a lot of value and is quite interesting. So, anyway, if you're a listener and you have an opinion, like head to the website, ping us.
Yeah, let us know.
Let us know.
I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that one.
Yeah,
I really
really
enjoyed
awesome.
that one.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
Wow, that was fun. Okay, I'll meet you in the living room.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
Ciao.